Hi strangers, so I reckon I probably look like a complete stranger given my latest over-the-top haircut, but when it comes to the franchise of The Strangers, I've done a complete U-turn on this over the past few weeks. For years I used to tell anybody who would listen that this whole thing was not worth bothering with because I saw the first one, I really didn't like it, and it was only a few weeks ago, completely on a whim, I decided to check out the sequel, The Strangers Pray at Night. And the difference between that film from the first one was like night and day to me. I really enjoyed it. It was probably one of the best slasher films I've seen all year. And so I was immediately desperate to check out the next one, the most recent one, The Strangers Chapter 1. But having now seen that, do I still consider this franchise to be my newfound friend, or has it gone back to being a complete stranger? So despite my newfound fervour for all things strangers, I did have a couple of big reservations coming into this movie. Firstly, this is a reboot. I mean, it had to be because the strangers all died in the second film, and you can't bring these characters back to life with a bolt of lightning. This is not Friday the 13th. You can't replace these villains with a bunch of like-minded cousins and aunts. This is not early 90s Texas Chainsaw. So the only way forward was a reboot, and normally I don't have the best of relationships with that word. I mean, if I'm playing Scrabble and I've got just the right letters to make the word reboot, I won't play it. On general principle, I'll play the word boot instead for 10 points. I'll leave a whole load of points out there. But this film had to start again. There was no other way around it. And the other big worry I had is the fact that supposedly this is going to be a trilogy. It's all planned. In fact, they filmed all 3 films already, to my knowledge. So that left me thinking, well, what exactly are we going to achieve then with these first 2 films? I mean, presumably the strangers are all going to survive until at least the 3rd film. So the odds are going to be even more stacked against the protagonists of Chapter 1 than they normally would be. I mean, I guess they could spring a surprise and have one of the strangers killed off in the first 2 films, but still, I was a little bit kind of umming and erring as to whether it was a good idea to announce this thing as a trilogy so early. But on the flip side of all this negative thinking, Renny Harlin is the director for all 3 of these films, and that put me in a much better frame of mind because Renny Harlin has never done a bad movie, to my knowledge. I mean, he probably has, but all the ones I've seen with him at the helm have been damn good. Die Hard 2, Cliffhanger, the original Deep Blue Sea, Devil's Pass, one of my favourite found footage films of all time. The man even managed to do a good Nightmare on Elm Street film. Now, to my mind, there have only ever been 3 good Freddy films out of the 9 made, and it just so happens that Renny Harlin did one of them. When it comes to the cast of this, the 2 biggest names are only playing relatively minor roles, which was very curious to me. So we've got Richard Brake playing a sheriff, but he's only in like 1 scene. And we've got Emma Horvath playing a waitress, and she's not in very many more scenes. So I thought to myself, you know what, I'm highly suspicious of this, and I reckon, actually, and I'm laying my cards down right here, Richard Brake and Emma Horvath are going to turn out to be 2 of the strangers in the later films. I'm just not buying it that these 2 would sign on to do just 1 scene in a diner at the start of Chapter 1 of this, and that's it. I just don't believe that for a second. And suspiciously, if you go on the wiki page for The Strangers Chapter 1, it doesn't tell you who plays the 3 strangers. I mean, maybe IMDb could shed some light on that, but no, I'm calling it now. I'm laying my money down on the table. Richard Brake and Emma Horvath are 2 of the 3 strangers, but we'll see what happens in future years when the other films are released. So if you don't know the story for this, we've got a young couple travelling across the state of Oregon, celebrating their 5-year anniversary, but their car breaks down outside a diner. But luckily, they bump into somebody who says that there's a hunting lodge for rent nearby. So these 2 main characters, they traipse off through the woods to find this place, and just as they're getting settled in for the night in their new surroundings, the strangers turn up, and we are off and running. Whether you've seen this film or not, you will probably be aware of the similarities between this and the original. In fact, I've seen it said in some very critical reviews, actually, that this film is essentially a remake of the first one. But I think that's very harsh. I mean, once you get past the fact that the protagonists are a couple and they are being terrorised in a residence of sorts, the movie is entirely different from what we got first time around. I was never thinking of the original at any point when I was watching this, and there's such a higher degree of competency with how this newer one has been made compared to the original. And I'm not just saying that because Renny Harlin is doing it. There are lots of chefs in the kitchen whenever any movie meal is being prepared, but right from the offset of this, there's just better quality in the air. We get such a sense of isolation with this film that you didn't get first time around, because we see the characters on the freeway and they break down and they have to go through the woods to get to the hunting lodge. By the time they get there, you really feel just how far away they are from where they would normally live their lives in Portland or whatever. Whereas in the first film, the two characters are in their house and then the doorbell rings and then we're off and running, but we never get any perspective as to where the house is compared to the neighbours or how far away the nearest town is. It's totally different. And also in this newer one, the direction of the whole film is so much better. That there's so many moments where characters are just creeping through the house and the film isn't afraid to just have these huge lingering moments of silence where you're not sure when and where something is going to kick off, whereas in the first film it felt much more action-packed. You know, there was very rarely a scene that was allowed to breathe for too long. There are so many memorable moments in this newer one as well. There's a glorious moment where somebody's playing the piano. It's a real classical piece of work. It's the one that was used in the original Resident Evil game, but whatever. But this character is playing the piano, and in the mirror above the piano you can see that the Scarecrow has sat himself down nearby and he's just listening to the music. Brilliant scene. There's also a sequence where some characters are going under the crawl space beneath the house. You didn't get anything like this in the first one. And there's no dodgy teleportation going on in this film as well. One of the big complaints I had about the original is that the strangers seem to just be everywhere they needed to be at any given time to stop the characters escaping in all the various directions. Now, over the years since I've seen that first film, I've probably built that up to be a bigger thing in my mind than what it probably was. I do need to go back and watch that first one. But never watching this newer one was I thinking that the film was cheating in terms of where the strangers are in relation to the good guys. You know, all the pieces on the board moved around, I think, in a very realistic way around the hunting lodge and in the surrounding woods. And there's a crackerjack of a scene in the woods, actually. There's a character hiding under some leaves and one of the strangers is nearby looking out for their prey. And I was holding my breath for about 30 seconds during this scene. I was like, and then when the scene was over, my next reaction was getting my breath back. I think if this scene had gone on for another minute, I might have died. And it would have been a really bizarre ending to my life after all these years of being on this planet, you know, just croaking it during The Strangers Chapter 1. But it could have easily happened because it was a brilliant scene and I was on the edge of my seat. But yeah, I just enjoyed the action and suspense of this film pretty much all the way through, and by the end of the whole thing I was absolutely ready to see part 2. The hunting lodge in this is a fantastic location. It's like a secondary character in its own right. It feels very similar to that place in Friday the 13th Part 2. Was it called Packanack? Well, the lodge here has a similar woodenness to that place in Friday Part 2. And the irony of this is that Jason's mask in Friday 2 was kind of similar to the one that Scarecrow has in these films. So I don't know if that's a complete coincidence or whether this is a little bit of a homage, maybe. I mean, this film's not brilliant. I probably made it out to be so far, but I still say that The Strangers Prey at Night is the best of these films. And I do have 2 or 3 criticisms about this new Strangers film. So firstly, when it comes to the look of the Strangers, they've done some unnecessary messing around. So these villains, we've got Scarecrow, Dollface and Pin-Up Girl. Now, The two female villains looked different from each other in the earlier films. One of them was clearly very blonde looking and the other one had more of a black mask. But this time around, I think both of the females have a black mask, which is kind of weird. It just made them look too similar to me. I don't know why they've made that stylistic change. It was kind of pointless. Also, there's a really dodgy trope that comes into force in the second half of this film. So we have a character who turns up to the lodge. I don't know who it is, actually. I think it might be a repairman. But of course, this character is swiftly killed, and even worse, this person is killed by the actual protagonist. So one of them's carrying a shotgun. He bursts around a corner and shoots this repairman who's standing on the doorstep, just completely destroys his face. And it's like, what are you doing? This character could have helped you. Do you not think you could like identify who the person is that you're about to shoot before you pull the trigger? Apparently not, but this is something I've seen in several horror films over the years. Like I said, it is a bit of a trope, and it's a shame that it had to rear its ugly head in this otherwise very good movie. There's also a little bit of an issue that I think will bug people for whom this is their first Strangers film. So these characters, for them, it's not just about the kill, right? The Strangers like to terrorise their victims before they kill them. They like the thrill of the chase, of the hunt. You know, it's not just about the kill. And there are times, especially early on in this particular hunt, where you may feel that the Strangers are not fully pressing home their advantage in the way that they should. There are one or two times where you will think, okay, why don't the Strangers just push on at this point and kill these people? You know, it will feel like they are just giving a little bit of leeway, maybe. But this is part of their MO. It's something that they do in all of the films. And I almost feel with these films, like, when it comes to around about the hour mark, there should be like a tannoy or a speaker system in the trees nearby. And after about an hour, a voice will come through this speaker system that says, "We are now entering Strangers Endgame. There are no more dodgy second chances from this point forwards. I repeat, no more dodgy second chances. From now on, you will be killed on sight." Because that is how the fabric of the films kind of work. People will get let off a little bit here and there in the first half of the film, whereas towards the end, they will probably just be killed if they get caught. Normally at this point of the video I would show you a copy of the film that I own for this, but I don't have any Strangers films on DVD or Blu-ray. In the future I could see myself maybe buying a box set of all 5 films once they've all been released, but whether they will do something like that or whether they will just do a box set for the newer trilogy, who can say at this point. Shall we get to the bag of terror and find out what sort of score I'm going to give for this? I think we should. So, we've got 1, 2, 3 and a half. 3.5 bloody axes out of 5. So this is just a smidgen down on The Strangers Prey at Night, but still a good film. I did really enjoy it. I was very close actually to giving this one a 4 as well. I had to think about my score for quite a while. Maybe 3.75 would have been exactly right, but I don't split my scores that much. But this is a film where I could see myself upping the score to 4, depending on how chapters 2 and 3 play out, if you see what I mean. But it's not like I'm going to make another video in the future to tell you that I've changed my score. But for now, it's a very, very solid 3.5 out of 5. Right, that wraps things up for today, unless you want to stay an extra minute or so and see my reading update. So I had been reading a documentary type book, Perfect Organism and Alien Isolation Companion, all about the making of the game Alien Isolation. I got through about 80 pages of this, and it was really good, you know, explaining about the production of the game and how it was made and stuff. And then it goes into a really long section where it literally goes level by level throughout the game and tells you how each level was done and you know, points out certain things that you can look out for. And I thought to myself at this point, you know what, I might as well just stop reading the book at this point and save this for when I next play the game. I've got no plans to at the moment, but that's why I basically stopped reading the book. I decided to save it for a more appropriate time. So I moved on from that and went back to Stephen King, and over the weekend I read Rage by Stephen King, which is a really early novel that he did. It's actually out of print now, and the reason he took it out of print is because it's a story about a school shooting, kind of, and I guess he figured it was a little bit controversial and maybe not appropriate to be out there these days with all the various shootings that have happened over the years. But in all honesty, it was probably worth taking it out of print just because it's a bad novel. It's easily the worst Stephen King novel I've ever read. It's a fairly short novel, but you can tell that he was really young when he wrote this. I think he was probably like college age. It's just a really bad story with bad characters, and half of it doesn't even make any sense. It's just bad. So yeah, I mean, I was only able to read it at all because I downloaded a PDF of it, paid like £3 on this book site, and that's how I got hold of it. And I did read it all the way to the end, but good lord, it's not a very good novel. But we'll leave it there for today. That was my reading update, and I'll be back soon to do another movie review. Until next time, cheerio, bye-bye.